On that note, one thing I always wanted to talk about. I know we're going a little long here, but this is
It's
always,
all right.
This is always
I'm having fun.
good. Yeah, getting drunk on coffee. But,
Getting drunk on coffee.
or Guinness for me. But what? Having said all this, what do you think? Because Ian is a verified press credentialed critic. Matt
Works at a comedy club.
But I think your opinions are still valid.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, Matt is sort of the everyman, and I am not a press credentialed critic. I am a fraud.
No,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But what I'm saying is, I'm trying to get there to get my credentials. So with these three different ends of the spectrum, what is it that everyone thinks makes someone a critic? Because everyone these days on the internet has their own opinion. You know, they write their own review on IMDb or Letterboxd or Rotten Tomatoes, or they'll write long Facebook 1,000 word rants about a movie. Then who's to say they are not any more qualified than someone who is, writing for RogerEbert.com or writing for the New York Times or Washington Post or whoever it may be?
Well, I think the critics should go first, and then I'll give my...
Okay. Well, you want to go ahead before I go, or should I go?
I'll let you walk into the firing squad. This is your show. After
So,
deflected.
Yeah. So, who goes first? You talk first. I talk first. All right. And then
you are a force to be reckoned with, and you have awakened.
That's right. I'll freeze that damn laser. So,
Forgot about that.
Here's what I think, which is I think anyone can be a critic if they are open-minded enough to try to watch different things and challenge themselves. So, for example, if you like only a certain set of movies, like I only like Terminator 2, and I only like, and I'm using my brother-in-law as an example, but he surprises me here. And you only like Ghostbusters and all these nostalgic things from your era, and you only like Marvel and all this stuff. But then, if someone says, hey, here's this weird art film, or not even a weird art film, here's a David Lynch film, you're going to go, I'm not going to see that. Here's an old film. I don't want to go see that. Right? Does that make that person a critic if they don't want to go out of their own comfort zone to see something? To me, I think you have to go out of that comfort zone, and you have to see something that at least, even if you consider it to be unpleasant, fine. And also, if you can articulate that opinion, which I think most of the population can. Most people are not as stupid as we think they are.
Yeah.
I think you could step out of your comfort zone and check some things out, and you can see it.
But the reason it would be hard for me to step out of my comfort zone is because my comfort is in the objectivity.
Yeah.
Like I can say that a Marvel movie was bad. Like I don't have a problem. Like I think a lot of times on YouTube there are guys that are like big Marvel fans and like, I thought this movie was great. And it's like, you thought.
But if someone walked up to you and they
Iron
said,
Man was good, you thought that?
I thought the third Iron Man was great.
Really?
it was okay.
I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
I thought it was absolutely just all right. It didn't. I thought Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2 is terrible.
Yeah. Iron Man 2 is.
You can say it.
Yeah.
that was Disney trying to figure out how to build.
That was an early stepping stone.
And what I mean by critics, like critiquing those type of things, like that's what I'm saying.
Critics.
Like, can you look at the thing you like? I think a great critic can look at something they like. I'm a fan of, but like objectively can say, no, this wasn't this.
Right,
this wasn't not only what I desired it would be, but like technically it was not good. Now I would say also, can you technically talk about the film?
Yeah.
Because like I don't know every bit of film lingo I need to know, or like every role. Like
I don't think you need to know that.
One of my favorite things about Get Out is the audio. The way the air in the room is taken out. It has like, and I know Jordan Peele's a big Hitchcock era fan, so like all his, like the scene where the guys running up, the way they're
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, oh shit, like, and I really appreciated the sound mixing and sound editing in that movie. So it's like, as long as you can understand, and that comes from me. I've written music. I wrote a song that was like in a movie. So like I performed.
What movie?
It's a shit movie. It's got
Iron Man 3.
It's Bruce Willis, 50 Cent, and like Ryan Felipe. I don't know.
Well, that's a real
Wow.
movie though.
Yeah.
It's
and
not like just some asshole student film. Sorry, film students.
No, but
yeah.
and I know the like process on how to like, write the song and what it needs to sound like.
It was in the movie?
Yeah, it's in the
Holy
movie.
shit.
Yeah, you
What
can
was
go
it called?
Google it. It's called Setup. You can go
Setup.
Google it. I'm credited on IMDb as the
Holy
writer
shit.
of the song. So yeah, but it and Get Out, the sound. It really, I was just like, man, this is so sonically like it.
Yeah.
Take and then like and see it like the when he's clawing the chair to pull the cotton out,
Yeah.
and you can hear that claw that.
Yeah.
And it's, I really man. But like as far as being a critic about stuff like that, as long as you are knowledgeable, as long as you're able to articulate, like you were saying earlier, I agree with that too. Yeah. But like, you gotta be able to be objective. Like I think that's my biggest thing about critics. Like if you lean in, like, oh, this is just the best thing I've ever seen, and then I go watch it, it's like, Slumdog Millionaire was okay.
Yeah, I always find that there's this odd thing when people say you got to be so objective to be the critic. Isn't there's nothing more subjective than criticizing someone else's work?
Yeah,
and looking into it, like yes, you can objectively look at it, but still, it's your own point of view. No matter what, it's subjective. But I think your point is, what can you say that will make people want to hear what you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing I would say, I guess objectively would be, like, semantics-wise would be, like, I could see why someone wouldn't like this. I could see why someone would like this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
I just, being a critic to me is how, I guess it's like, there's a trust you have to create.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's this guy named Emergency Awesome on YouTube. And I've been following him for a long time. He really likes Supergirl, the TV show.
Okay.
And I'm like lukewarm on it. Like I just
yeah.
Like, but he's like everyone, but his whole mantra is like everything's awesome, everyone stay awesome, like awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
I feel that way about Jeremy Johns. He
Yeah.
just seems like the biggest fucking hack that I've ever like. I'm just not gonna. I can't. I'm sorry, but he's a guy. If you were to say, hey, here's a movie from the 1930s, he'd be like, yeah, I don't want to see that. There are explosions, dude. Like, he seems like one of those guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
Do we have another 6 hours?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think part of it goes back to something you said earlier, Matthew, when we were talking about movies. One of the key ingredients is quality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to something we were talking about just before we got into this segment was the saturation of the market platforms with content because it's all out there.
Remember
Movies
to
are
smash
everywhere.
that like and subscribe button, everyone.
There you go. Yeah. So everybody has access. Well, everyone who's got the internet has the ability to become a critic, whether on Twitter or a free, blog spot site or whatever. I've been a film critic for just about 10 years. Yeah, just over 10 years. And a quote-unquote recognized film critic for, I think, 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've never been paid. It's all, just working constantly, watching as many movies, many different kinds of movies as possible.
Yeah.
I evolved from writing 900, 1,000 word reviews, not 900,000 word reviews. No.
Man.
You wrote 900,000 reviews?
No, that's what I was saying. Like reviews that were like 900 or 1,000 words long.
Oh, okay.
Not 900,000 words.
Right, yeah.
Then you would have
I wrote 4 books about one movie.
But I would, at my, earlier on, before I had, kids, I would watch a movie pretty much every day and write
Yeah.
1,000+ word review every day. I was a monster.
Yeah.
And not all of that stuff was good, especially because I wasn't sleeping a whole lot.
Yeah.
Please don't look at the deep archive on Kickseat.com. But
Scroll
I
to page 45.
I consumed as much content as possible, and I wrote about it, and I was as honest as I could be, and I tried to formulate a voice, and eventually that led to podcasting, and then
Yeah.
this year like YouTube channel and all that stuff. So constantly trying to grow and figure out what do I have to say that random reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes, not even the critics, but
Yeah.
you've got the audience scores and the audience reviews. How do I stand out from that? It's not a
Yeah.
conscious thing. It's just that whenever I talk about something or write something, I want to make sure that it's coming from my point of view.
Yeah.
Well, you had said earlier, Matthew, about this critic loving Supergirl, and you said, no, that show's kind of nonsense. That's your opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your point
And
of
you
view
can't
on it.
crawl
Yeah.
inside someone else's head to figure out if they're just shilling, like perhaps a Jeremy Johns might. From
Oh,
your
no, he's
perspective, might.
objectively shit.
Well,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
well,
I'm kidding.
I've recently discovered his stuff on YouTube,
Yeah.
and I watch it. He's got the douche aura about him, but as far as his analysis, I've listened to some of his stuff. I'm like, I disagree with that, but I like his presentation. Or
I could
I'm on
easily
board with him,
jump
right?
cut in between all my sentences and make myself sound like I know what I'm talking about.
But that's YouTube. I mean, that's a style of
I mean,
content
yeah.
creation, right?
Yeah, that's a
Um,
stylistic
it's just
style. On
lazy
social
to me.
media,
It's
jump
fucking
cuts
lazy.
are.
Well, but here's
all
the thing: you
all
say the
the
word
rage.
lazy, right?
Yeah.
That's you watching the end product of a 5-minute video. How long did it take him to shoot that?
I could tell
and
you
edit
from
it,
experience.
right? But you're not in his shoes. It
Yeah.
might take him a long time to put this stuff
Yeah,
together.
'cause-
Maybe as a team, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
See,
the
you're more
same way-
open-minded than me, so.
right, but that's as a film critic,
Yeah.
as you go along in your journey,
Yeah.
and you watch and experience different kinds of films and get to talk to filmmakers. One of the big benefits of being a film critic to me
Yeah.
is the access you get to filmmakers, because that will dissolve a lot of preconceptions you have about the people who make movies, the way movies get made.
Oh, yeah.
The systems that go in place, the interference, and all that kind of stuff. One of the beautiful things is I can go back and look at a review I wrote for a film 5-10 years ago, watch that movie and be like, I was way off base, because I understand the perspective I was coming from back then, but it's totally different from the one I have now.
Yeah.
And if I were to revisit it 10 years from now, maybe I'll go back and thinking, oh, that was shit, and when I was 42, I didn't know anything, or I was going through a weird phase. That's the other thing about criticism, is the way you interpret and engage a film has a lot to do with how tired was I when I watched it? Did I just have
Yeah.
a breakup? Do I, for some reason, think that Republicans are not inherently funny right now? That kind of a thing. Because people change and they evolve.
Yeah.
And the content doesn't. The content is static.
Static,
But the way you
yeah.
engage with it, you can watch the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey once a year for a decade, and it will be a different film every time you go back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, maybe
And
every 3 years, because you don't need to watch 2001 every year to get the point.
You can.
Yeah.
I've seen it on this big screen like
But
7 times now.
I
Um,
agree.
but-
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I came from a background where, and I remember I had this conversation at a film festival way back, where, what was it way back? It was like 2 years ago. I'm going to belch now.
That's way back.
And essentially, what I was talking to this guy about is, there's a lot of film critics, but I started in a filmmaking background. Like when I was 13 years old, I made my first movie on, the old Bolex cameras that you roll and chop up the film with. The movie sucked, but I was 13, Yeah.
But you made a movie.
Yeah, and I was also like the youngest volunteer. They didn't even allow volunteers at this age at like my cable access station at 13. And when I was in high school, I made various films that won a lot of awards. And then in college, I made movies, and I still make movies while reviewing films. So for me, it's like, I feel like I can talk about movies because I not only have made them, but I started making them in the analog era and the digital era. And I've worked on, the big budget films. I got stories about Michael Bay.
I feel like they would
everything
be
you-
miserable stories.
Yes, everything you've heard about him is true and worse.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I mean,
But then-
you know what Michael Bay movie when you see it. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, he doesn't like himself.
Yeah, well, you could exactly. He is a very insecure man,
Yeah.
just like our president,
Mm.
but not my president.
Okay.
Okay, but
What
and
a-
I've lost all my fans. But
What a
you know
hill to
what?
die on.
Here's something that a critic was talking about on a panel, which is he said as a writer, and I always like this. He said, "Do not hold back." You know. Because, and I know I certainly got a lot of shit for it when I wrote my Joker review. I compared it to the Trump era and how a re-election of Donald Trump could lead to more violence. And this film
course.
was a warning about that. And holy shit did people jump on me. Even people in film-based discussions. But you know what? People listened to what I wrote.
I
and
think
they gave
that's
a
important.
shit. Yeah.
That's important.
And that's the thing. Like, what can you say? Not just to be different.
To
Don't
connect.
don't just try to be different. You know, people try to tell me to be different because, you know, I have my own mental issues. It's not obvious by now. I'm not exactly stable. And and then, you know, I mean, soon I might tear my clothes off and squawk around the room like a chicken.
I'd
but
pay to see that.
yeah, man, now that would be a video. You know, I just say, "Where's the camera?"
But I think that's
But yeah, you
We-
have to find your voice and know what you're
Yep.
saying and why.
and it's important. And it's important because I think when we look for critics, some
Yeah.
people come to critics so narrow-minded, you know, like
Oh yes,
and you're giving more of a nuanced narrative. And so because some people, when it comes to like cinema and art, they don't want to see themselves in the art. They think they can just look at a picture or painting or whatever that art piece is, that property is,
Yeah.
and just go, I like this, I didn't like it. But
Yeah.
like when you really feel something like that, that's what you did. You sparked, you know, that type of review, and those type of reviews spark
Yeah.
something in someone.
and you gotta
Like,
have an open mind because you gotta be able to see a movie that you don't think you're gonna like. Like I didn't think I was gonna like La La Land because you know I'm not a musical guy, you know. But what did I do? I sat my ass in that seat. I watched the movie, and I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, because I gave it a chance. You know, I just like, you know, with Ford versus Ferrari. I don't care about cars, but maybe I'll see it, I'll love it. So who knows? You know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
for a
mean-
2.5 hour length, maybe it'll speed by. There's a fucking pun.
Well, I mean, I think there's what is a critic is a huge question, and you know we're not going to solve that here. I think we've made some
No.
good inroads to perhaps like 16 more discussions. But I think one of the key things that you touched on, Matthew, is not just like watching a movie and saying, "Oh, it sucked," or you know, it was great. You know, with the podcast that I put out like 2 to 3 episodes a week and a YouTube show, and I'm not trying
Yeah.
to toot my own horn, but just to give a context, this is something I believe in and I love talking about. I cannot watch a movie and not talk about it for at least
Yeah.
45 minutes to an hour. Even if I
Yeah.
hated it, sometimes especially if I hated it, there's always something there for me to dig into, and part of that is putting it in the context of other films that I've seen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because sometimes I know whenever I finish a movie, and I'll walk around the room like a crazy person talking to myself about it, you know?
Right, and
That's what I-
being
yeah.
a critic is just
Yeah.
kind of like transcribing that inner monologue
Yeah.
into something that you can share with people.
Yeah.
Whether it's the written word or a video or a podcast.
Yeah.
Now, I keep hitting back on this. The internet has made it so that there are a million critics out there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a difference between being someone. I've heard people say there's a difference between being a reviewer and a critic,
Yeah.
or just someone with an opinion versus a reviewer or a critic. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
I don't exactly know, but I know that when I go to Rotten Tomatoes and I see someone leave a 3-sentence review about The Irishman, I don't consider that film criticism.
Yeah.
Unless it's like, you know, the most. Unless it's like Mark Kermode or Richard Roper, they could probably put together a really strong
Yeah.
argument, and I
Yeah.
might respect them. But even that's based on pedigree. And
Yeah.
does pedigree matter in terms of criticism? Maybe, sure. What if you're a brand new critic, and 15 years from now you're going to be the next Roger Ebert, but right now it's your first review?
Yeah.
Can someone write you off because like, oh, you got no pedigree? Like
Yeah.
Vincent Van Gogh wasn't recognized until years
Yeah.
after he was dead.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I really just like have this thing like because I remember before I got into like watching films heavily,
Yeah.
like movies would win Oscars that I had never even seen before, and I should be
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh
what,
yeah.
what is that? What movie is this? And then like
Who the fuck saw Lion still?
I just, but
like,
then,
no, that's a real question. Who the fuck
but I
saw
guess
that movie?
that kind of goes to the point that you were making, Mike. How I went and saw Slumdog Millionaire. I still thought it was a good movie. I just didn't. It was like, wow, it was like hyped up. Like
Hype kills so many movies.
Hype.
It killed No Country
Yeah.
for Old Men for me.
I thought it was good, and then but like that challenge, I did. I stepped out of my comfort zone to see that movie. But in doing so, I've made it more of a practice. So like I saw Moonlight. I mean, years later, I've seen just so many movies I wouldn't have gone and seen on my own.
Yeah.
Because of that reason. So
did you see Moonlight with your girlfriend or with another?
No. I keep saying girlfriend because that's all I've ever called her, but it's my fiance / wife, and we went and saw.
I saw it with my dad.
We watched.
That was awkward.
We saw Moonlight. We watched Moonlight together, but we really enjoyed it. That movie moved me, and then the other movie that I saw just recently that I don't remember being in theaters was If Beale Street Could Talk, and that was another movie because like I is a constant in my circles that rom-coms or romantic dramas are like just they're these datey movies, but like If Beale Street Could Talk felt so warm and genuine and just like it doesn't, even though it's hard, it doesn't have to be miserable. That's kind of like the message I got and I liked about that movie. So
on that note, and I still haven't seen If Beale Street Could Talk. I gotta catch up with it. I think that was from last year actually.
Yeah.
James Baldwin.
Yep, that's a book. I read it. It's beautiful.
He wrote a book of film critic essays.
Really?
And I can't. It was. I want to say it was like The Devil Speaks or something like that.
I think it is what's
right. But if you haven't read it, read it. It's fun because it's about film criticism, but it's also not. It's great.
He's so genius.
Yeah.
So great.
Now I think you can go the far end of the spectrum, which drives me crazy about critics, and I love my colleagues, and I'm friends with a lot of them.
Yeah.
But sometimes, here's a great example. The same weekend Star Wars Rise of Skywalker opens, we are also getting Cats. Cats is...
that's going to be fun.
Well, here's the thing. Cats is reviled before anyone's seen it. They're going based on the trailers.
I want to see what they do. The music looks great.
Well, here's my point exactly.
Yeah.
I was on Twitter, I think last night, because an invitation came out for the press screening for Cats. And a colleague I know posted, like, if someone will pay me $250 to write my honest opinion, I will go see this movie and report back. And I'm like, you're my friend, and I respect your opinion, but, climb out from your own ass and just enjoy the movie, or don't see it and don't say anything. Because I feel like, and this is a person who makes films that I, for the most part, really like, and they're very much film scholars, and they could tell you, every Agnes Varda picture and, tons of stuff that I haven't even seen. But when it comes to, like, the popular culture, it's almost like the Scorsese thing we were talking about. It's like, I hate to use the phrase stay in your lane, but it's like, if you're going to come out of your lane, do some research before you open your mouth.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a hot take on Cats before anyone's seen it. I'm not saying it's going to be great art, but it is still art. The people who made it aren't like, I don't really care about this. I'm going to spend 16 hours in makeup and subject myself to this weird digital, process so I can embarrass
Even
myself.
Tommy Wiseau cared when he made The Room.
But but I'm saying, like, Taylor Swift, Idris Elba, Sir Ian McKellen.
Work
maybe
goes
it's a
into this
paycheck
stuff.
because
It's
they paid
still
him
work.
$20 million, but it's like these are serious people.
But they still got to do the job. If they half-ass it, you're going to notice.
Right.
Yeah.
So perhaps this thing comes out, and that's kind of my fear. If Cats is great, is anyone going to notice? Like, or
the
are
Rise
critics
of
going to go and be
Skywalker
like,
coming out.
that movie... Let's
Yeah.
rewind a couple of years ago to The Greatest Showman, a movie that I avoided in theaters because everybody I know who was a critic went and saw it and panned it. I rented it, like, when it came out on video, and my wife and I loved it, which was in line with everybody else that I know who was not a critic who saw it. They're like, this is the best movie. I'm like, my critic friends said it was like garbage. I'm going to kind of go with them because, we're kind of like brethren in that sense. But in that case, I was like, you motherfuckers, I missed seeing this in the theater because you told me not to go.
And
The thing is, don't be afraid. We have sort of this mob mentality
I was just
when
about
it
to say
comes
cult mentality,
to agreeing on a film. If you don't like the new Star Wars movie, then you're right. If you like it, you're a sellout. You know?
Because I actually have told Mike this before. We talked about this. I said for all the people that really love the first 3 Star Wars.
Guess what movie we're gonna talk about?
I was like, these first 3 Star. I was like, was it A New Hope came on TV one day, and I was like, how did anyone fall in love with this movie? How did anyone fall in love with this franchise? That movie is so hard to watch. I
love this. I love this. You're saying speech. Preach.
But then you're not going to
I totally disagree, but I love that it's a different opinion. I love it.
Right, because you're not going to agree with me because I like the newest movies more. I really
know.
like
You
the
told me
newest
that.
movies
I
more.
love it.
I just like the second film, that second movie, like the second one was of the newest 3. That
Last
scene
Jedi.
where the commander takes her spaceship through the Empire.
Oh, yeah.
That is a beautiful, like, that is harkened to that old sci-fi, like the reason Star Wars was like ingrained in everybody's minds, and I was like, that is a beautiful shot.
And that's cinema.
Yes.
Because if that were just a dumb roller coaster movie, she would have pointed the ship at the other ship, and it would have been like zoom, 75 different takes. There were stories written about this at the time it came out. People getting up and going to find the manager because they thought the sound had gone out.
They had
in
to put
theaters.
signs outside the theater.
Right.
So when she and it just goes dead silent, and it's like, oh, that's so good.
It's beautiful.
So good.
Yeah.
That is good.
I don't know,
You
but
know?
that's so. I know, Mike. I know you don't.
I know. Here's the thing. I have my reservations about The Last Jedi, but when I said, when you're a critic and you have to be objective, and I believe that, there's nothing more subjective than being a critic. As a Star Wars fan, it's very hard for me to be subjective or objective about The Last Jedi because I'm like, he throws a lightsaber like it's a fucking joke. Are you kidding me? So it's
subverting
hard,
expectations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, he subverted them all right,
Yeah,
and he turned
did.
it into a
He made y'all
goddamn
real
comedy
angry.
routine.
He made y'all very angry.
Yeah. But
Well, and that's not that we have to rehash The Last Jedi, but that's
Yeah.
one of the things that I loved about that movie because The Force Awakens was so faithful to A New Hope that when Rian Johnson came in and completely cleared the chessboard,
just use a hacksaw.
I'm like, based on Knives Out, I'll say he's a hack, but.
No, I said a hacksaw. I didn't say he's a hack.
Oh, I just heard Rian Johnson's a hack because that's,
No,
that's the
I
refrain
do-
that goes through my head every day.
No, I do not. I do not think he's a hack. I like Brick.
I know.
Brick.
I'm being facetious, sort of. Eddie, but when I
He's
found
being a
out
critic.
when I found out that when I found
kidding,
out
I'm
J.J. Abrams was coming back for the third one, I'm like, oh no, they're just gonna try and pick up the pieces.
Sew them back together.
They're literally
make-
doing it in the trailer where Kylo Ren is putting back together his
Abrams is
helmet.
in a chair
Yeah.
with his knitting needles.
Yeah.
So that's why, and I've heard a lot of problems. I'm going to be fascinated by seeing Rise of Skywalker, how
It's gonna
they
be
put it all
a
together.
train wreck.
Yeah, because we'll find out
We'll
if
see.
the
Hopefully it's
rumors
not.
about the test screenings and how J.J. Abrams said last week, we finally finished the movie. I'm like, oh, I'm glad. 2 weeks out.
Whoa.
Yeah. So again, we'll find out who's bullshitting and who's not on the internet because YouTube is full of these giant factions of people
Avoid
warring.
YouTube. Right? Avoid. You'll probably watch. You'll probably.
Avoid YouTube, except for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, I just wanted to bring that up because the way you explain the way you go about critiquing, talking about challenging. I've thought about that. It's like, oh yeah, that is one of those things.
But it's great when people do talk about The Last Jedi. I do like how it splits people up so much, including myself. There is a degree of me that respects the movie for really taking a chance, and that Disney put all their faith in that one guy. Whether I agree with his decisions or not is another story, but I respect what that movie tried to do.
And one of the other things that I think is important to film criticism is how critics react to other criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was a huge fan of Last Jedi coming out of the theater. I remember recording the podcast immediately after with a circle of critics, and one of them said, this is probably the best Star Wars movie ever.
Ooh,
and I understand that was like a big, hot, emotional thing, but we were all sort of on the same wavelength.
Well, you just came off a high.
Right.
Yeah.
But afterward, and I know people who came out of the theater saying that was trash,
Yeah.
But I've heard in the intervening years a lot of the criticisms of The Last Jedi, and I can take that on board and be like, I understand the slow motion chase through space is really dumb because I could have just like hyper sped in front of them
like
and caught them.
Consequentialist spot. That's
But-
not a word, but now it is.
Well,
Yeah.
but I understand all of the points that people, even the angry, we'll call them misogynist trolls for the shorthand.
Yeah.
I understand all of their criticisms.
You mean
and
Rose?
Huh?
You mean Rose's character?
No, I mean, for
what's
other-
his name? Poe Dameron's character.
What
where-
about?
Well,
oh,
where he, because Poe Dameron's character has 2 moments where he tries to do the machismo choice.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like,
and
no,
he
this
gets
is the
called
better-
out
and
on
he gets
it,
called
yeah.
out.
I was
he gets
fine with that.
demoted.
There-
But I think that'll make him a better character for the next movie if
Yeah.
they keep him on that.
He becomes
canon.
like the real leader. Yeah.
yeah.
But I understand the perspective of people who watch that movie with a certain lens.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I can see all of your criticisms in there. It's not all imagined. I don't know if it's deliberate or if you just kind of like that Shining documentary, Room 237, about
Yeah.
how people watched that and came up with all these conspiracy theories.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
all based on something they saw in the film, and watching that documentary and hearing their stories, I'm like, yeah, that is kind of eerie. Probably has nothing to do with reality at all, but there is a basis there,
Right.
and I can take that on board and still have it not affect in the least my enjoyment of the film. Because I
Yeah.
can say, yeah, sometimes I just am really in love with ridiculous trash.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
If that ain't the truth about
Man, who doesn't love bad movies? They're fun.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a reason people go out to see The Room. You know,
The Room?
Because The Room is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And the music
And
box,
some-
the
and some-
flying
Oh
spoons.
God, it's wonderful. It's
The
wonderful.
The Room was the Room.
I really mean that. Yeah.
Is even Dolomite.
Yeah.
I mean, Dolomite is so good. Not Dolomite is my name. Dolomite. It's
Yeah.
a really good movie, but it's
I
so
don't
bad.
know.
It's so very bad.
I
But
see. Okay.
is there anything else you want to cover on this, Mike? Because
Not really.
my parking the parking
Oh,
meter
yeah.
is hitting.
Oh,
Okay.
The parking
No,
the thing will ring soon, and I will have to just.
Oh,
walk
that's
away from you.
okay. Yeah, no. I think we all kind of have an understanding of what it's like to be a critic, which
Yeah.
is you have to be able to articulate something. When my dad saw Moonlight with me, you know, he can't really articulate his opinion. I'm not knocking him. I love him. I hope he likes his Christmas gift I got him. And I remember I walked out of the theater. I'm like,
You
what
got
do
the
you
oddest plugs, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to my dad.
I'm socially awkward.
It's okay,
but
man.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Anyways, I remember I walked out of the theater and I'm like, "What do you think of it?" He's like, "The whole movie was just about these guys finding out that they're gay. I don't care if they're gay." And then like, that was his whole review. And I'm like, well, it's about being a black man in America and how, you know, you have to be tough because then you're viewed as... He's like, yeah, I know that. I grew up on the West Side. I don't care. I don't wonder if I care if they're gay or not. So, like, maybe he's not the most articulate man to watch movies.
But
Yeah.
it challenged I think it challenged the lens as to the way he saw the world. I think that's
No,
why.
he didn't care. He didn't-
No, I mean, like, no,
Right.
that dismissiveness. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to like come after your dad or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
go
like,
ahead.
But like, I'm just saying, like, that dismissiveness comes from like being told a story that doesn't involve you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that dismissiveness that I don't care what happens type thing that comes from that.
Yeah.
So to not see himself in the films that he sees. Yeah, this is it. To not see himself in the films that he sees.
Yeah.
Is what might spark that type of like reaction
Yeah.
to it. Because I know a lot of times like people want to see themselves in the movies that they watch.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. You gotta, you know, the thing that Ebert loved was he loved to see a movie. It was a vehicle for empathy. You could take yourself to another person, to another place, you know, for someone from another culture, another class. You know, you could experience that feeling with them on a certain level. Actually, you know, one of my favorite movies of this year that I don't think will get Oscar consideration, and I hope it does, is a movie I forgot the name of. It was with Aquafina, and it was about her.
Oh
The Farewell.
The Farewell. I
The
want to see
Farewell.
that.
Yeah, I still have to watch that.
Yeah,
I still haven't
it's
seen that. I want to see it. I heard it was
phenomenal.
Yeah,
And that's
you
a movie
actually-
where you're taken to a different culture and you completely
yeah.
connect to something.
And I think
being
that-
able to
and-
see
yeah.
movies like that and talk about them can make you a critic, and being able to articulate what you want.